A man with a long rap sheet of crimes is arrested on attempted murder charges. New today, our team questions how he fell through the cracks. A step forward in a fight for justice.
We want you all to know we believe you now, and we stand with you.
The aid, Attorney Ben Crump, will lend sexual abuse victims of Baltimore's Archdiocese. Then, toxic water from that Ohio train derailment once again on its way to our area after leaders originally denied the request.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
We have breaking news at this hour. A jury finds Donald Trump liable in a civil rape trial. For 2 weeks, jurors in New York have been hearing the case of E. Jean Carroll, a writer and columnist who accused Mr. Trump of raping her in a luxury apartment store dressing room back in 1996. Now, moments ago, jurors rejected Carroll's claims that she was raped, but found Trump liable for sexual abuse and for defaming Carroll after she made her allegations public. They're awarding her $5 million. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. An investigation by Fox 45 News has revealed another breakdown in the criminal justice system. Just days ago, a 26-year-old repeat violent offender was arrested on drug charges. Fox 45 News finding he had multiple open warrants for other crimes.
Alexa Ashwell is live with another case of a wanted suspect seemingly slipping through the cracks. Alexa.
Okay, Mary, we've long heard from city leaders as well as police about the need for all of the systems to work together in order to effectively fight and reduce crime. Well, here we have a repeat violent offender who has a warrant issued for his arrest, but it goes unserved for nearly 6 months. And during that time, police say he committed other crimes, some of them violent.
When Baltimore police arrested Terrell Parker on drug distribution charges May 6, court records show the 26-year-old already had 3 open warrants for his arrest, including for attempted murder. One warrant was nearly 6 months old.
He and many others are walking the streets with open warrants for very serious crimes.
Fox 45 News taking a closer look at the warrants. In November 2022, a warrant was issued for Parker's arrest for an alleged assault and burglary involving a girlfriend, where she told police he broke into her home, punched her in the face, and choked her. 3 months later, Parker was accused of assaulting another girlfriend and stealing her car. Then, in April, Parker was identified by 2 witnesses as the suspect who shot a man in the face. Another warrant was issued for his arrest for attempted murder. Parker was finally arrested in May on drug distribution and possession charges. Court records show he was caught with suspected cocaine and heroin after an officer surveilling City Watch cameras recognized him and knew he was wanted. That's 3 separate crimes Parker is accused of committing while having an open warrant for his arrest. Fox 45 News questioning BPD, asking why did it take so long to track down Parker? Former BPD Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson says it all comes down to staffing.
The Warrant Apprehension Task Force, which is the component of the police department that is out actually looking for people who are fugitives, they don't have the resources or the manpower to go track down every single person with an open warrant. So therefore, you're going to have a lot of people with open warrants that are just going about their business, probably committing other crimes, waiting to be arrested. And it really gets down really to the resources that law enforcement has in Baltimore.
In the past, Commissioner Harrison has said the department prioritizes warrants based on the severity of the crime. But Parker, well known to BPD, with a violent criminal history that dates back into his juvenile years. Records show Parker received probation for an armed robbery turned shooting in 2015 and was then sentenced to 2 years in prison for a handgun violation later that same year. Then in 2019, records show Parker was arrested for murder in a double shooting. The charge later reduced to assault and the case not sent to jury. Parker seemingly falling through the cracks.
There are insufficient resources today to be able to guarantee that people will be brought to justice, even when it's a repeat violent offender, and even when the person remained in Baltimore.
I also reached out to the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office and asked for clarity on this 2019 case where Parker was originally charged with murder. As for BPD, a spokesperson acknowledged our request and said they're working on a response. Reporting live outside police headquarters, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Well, that 18-year-old charged in the fatal armed robbery inside a T-Mobile store in Canton has been denied bond. Arthur McCadden, along with his 14-year-old brother, are now in custody. In denying bail, the judge also considered Arthur McCadden's extensive juvenile record and armed robbery charges pending in New Jersey. McCadden and his brother are allegedly captured on video robbing a Best Buy store there. Well, young people committing crime or being accused of committing crime is a major issue our region has been dealing with. As a response to juvenile crime, Baltimore will be bringing back a youth curfew this summer. It is supposed to go into effect this Memorial Day, but Mayor Scott has shared little details about the plan. We spoke with Councilmember Zeke Cohen about the planning process.
I know that the mayor's office is working on it. I know that the Monsi and the city administrator are working to put that together. Again, I think a lot of it is going to depend on, one, whether logistically the mayor's office can pull it off. We know that it requires a ton of planning and that the curfew centers need to be open, they need to be staffed. We know that clearly there's a shortage of law enforcement. And so I know there's concerns about whether or not there will be enough officers to effectively enforce the curfew.
In a Fox 45 News investigation, new insight into how little the mayor's office was willing to share about how it's handing out the $641 million from the American Rescue Plan.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost obtained emails showing the mayor's office was keeping some information private from the city council during the deliberation process.
And Mackenzie joins us now. Mackenzie, what are you learning from the documents you've been poring over?
Well, Marian Kaya gives us a look into how this process really played out, right? We've seen the mayor hold news conferences time and time again talking about how some of this federal American Rescue Plan money will be spent. Some of that money going to city agencies and departments, other going to nonprofits. And that's where it really gets interesting, because in these emails, we can see that some council members were questioning the mayor's Office of Recovery why their endorsed nonprofit that they were giving their support to did not get funding, while other organizations did get some money. The emails also show that the city was keeping some information private about just how much money was going to be going to these various nonprofits. And remember, the city must have all of the $641 million committed by the end of next year. Mary?
And Mackenzie, is the mayor saying anything about this?
Well, we did just get a statement from the mayor's office, and if you remember, throughout this entire process, he has been touting his office as being transparent through this entire nonprofit application process and deliberation. We'll have his statement as well as much more from these emails and our full story coming up at 5. We're live in Baltimore. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
There's new information as a big name joins the fight against sex abuse within the Baltimore Archdiocese. Nationally renowned civil rights attorney Ben Crump is advocating for survivors in Baltimore and pushing for other states to follow Maryland's lead and lift the statute of limitations on childhood sexual abuse. This after a report released by the Attorney General last month detailed decades-long abuse covered up by the Baltimore Archdiocese.
Fox 45's Maxine Stryker joins us live with some of these new details. Maxine?
Well, Crump, along with another prominent attorney here in Baltimore, they plan to file hundreds of lawsuits on behalf of these survivors come October, when Maryland's new Child Victims' Rights Act takes effect. Now, the Victims Act was signed into law last month. It allows survivors to file retroactive lawsuits, even if their claims have already expired under an existing statute of limitations, and for all future lawsuits based on childhood sex abuse claims. Now, the attorneys, they plan to file these lawsuits in Baltimore court against the Catholic Archdiocese of Baltimore beginning October 1st of this year. That's when they say a look-back window under Maryland's Child Victims Act begins.
This case is about holding the institution that enabled the abusers accountable. In this case, of course, it's the Catholic Church. So even though they're long deceased, first of all, many of them were known abusers, meaning that they abused many, many victims. The institution must be held accountable.
Now, Crump says that hundreds of survivors have come forward to them, some of them named in that original Attorney General report, others coming forward for the first time. You'll hear from one of those survivors coming up at 5 o'clock. Reporting live for now in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Maxine. Right now, Ben Crump has also joined a lawsuit against Baltimore City schools. It accuses the school system of wasting taxpayer dollars and failing to provide an adequate education to generations of students. Crump says Baltimore is facing an education crisis, and the solutions we find here will make waves around the country.
Do you believe the civil rights of the students in Baltimore City, as far as education is concerned, are being violated?
I think it's even more than a civil rights issue. It's a human rights issue. When you cannot read and write, you don't have literacy, you don't have education, you're already in prison. They just haven't shut the prison door gate, and that's what we're fighting against.
Well, the lawsuits were filed by 2 Baltimore parents. We also want to disclose Ben Crump is an advertiser on this station.
Fox 45 News has learned toxic waste from the Ohio train derailment will be treated here in Baltimore. After all, the new changes to ensure our water is safe
would mean that Social Security recipients and veterans, contractors, we just wouldn't have enough money to pay the bills.
The clock is ticking tonight for the nation to take steps to avoid a debt default. The meeting today between the president and top congressional leaders.
And the stage is set for Lizzo to perform tonight in downtown Baltimore. We have an update on the health issue that led to some cancellations.
And a little bit of light rain today, but now the clouds are just kind of stuck in for the afternoon and evening commute. Temperature's not bad in the low to mid 60s, but about 20 degrees cooler than what we saw yesterday. I'll let you know when the 80s will be back, though. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
We want to make sure promises were given, the promises are kept. And right now, it doesn't seem that's what's going on right now.
The battle over wastewater from Ohio being shipped to our area continues tonight. It was contaminated months ago, if you'll remember, when a train derailed in Ohio, caught fire, and spilled chemicals from its cargo.
Well, now the federal government is leaning on wastewater treatment plants across the country. And despite pushback from local and state leaders, it seems that toxic water is still coming to our area.
Amy Simpson joins us live right now with the new developments. Amy, and it seems like some people really aren't happy about this.
Kai, that's right. That toxic wastewater will be treated here at the Clean Harbors facility in Baltimore. Take a look at these tanks behind this fencing and barbed wire. That wastewater will then be sent back to Cleveland, Ohio for disposal. Just off of Baltimore's busy Russell Street, steps from the Horseshoe Casino, M&T Bank Stadium, and Camden Yards is where toxic wastewater from February's Ohio train derailment will soon be treated. It's a change in course from the decisions made in late March, when Clean Harbors, a private company tapped as part of the EPA-regulated cleanup, said it would not be bringing the toxic waste here to Baltimore to treat and release. That decision came after city and state lawmakers pushed back, saying Baltimore would not be a dumping ground.
If I have to stand in front of the train to stop it, I'll do it.
But now, just a few weeks later, we're learning the toxic waste will be coming here after all. Today, Clean Harbors said its Baltimore plant is equipped to safely process the Ohio wastewater. And out of respect for Mayor Scott and Baltimore City DPW, it will not discharge any of the treated water here, instead planning to ship the water back to Ohio for disposal. The Maryland Department of the Environment tells Fox 45 News Norfolk Southern Railroad Company notified the agency it intends to ship about 75,000 gallons of hazardous wastewater here to Baltimore each day by either truck or train. But because Clean Harbors is a private company, it does not have regulatory authority over the decision.
We have a right to know exactly what's coming here.
For toxic waste that will travel through Baltimore County before reaching that treatment facility in Baltimore City, this state senator tells Fox 45 News he learned of the change in plans on social media.
I have concerns that they still might go back on their word and it still might go to our wastewater treatment plant.
Really, this is about oversight and protections.
Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski echoing concerns about any potential impact to his jurisdiction.
We have to be very careful and make sure that it is a slow, safe route of transport, that we don't have any derailment issues, and that also that we're tracking and monitoring to ensure that nothing does go into our wastewater system.
Meanwhile, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott says in part, in no way, shape, or form will treatment or discharge take place within our wastewater facilities. Back out live now outside of Clean Harbors here in Baltimore. That toxic waste is not here in Baltimore just yet, but today the Maryland Department of the Environment tells me that those shipments would start anytime after April 29th, which means they could start arriving any day now. We're live in Baltimore. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Taking a look now at the Fox Quad box. 4 years after the burned body of 4-year-old was found in East Baltimore, we are nearing his murder trial. Malachi's mother and her spouse are charged in the boy's death. A trial is planned this month.
A fire destroys multiple apartments overnight in Ellicott City. 14 apartments were impacted, leaving multiple families homeless. No one was hurt.
Investigators continue to recreate the deadly Beltway crash that killed 6 highway workers in March. Sources tell Fox 45 News workers had complained about safety before the tragic accident. Drivers may run into some traffic near Woodlawn as the work continues.
And after a brief health scare, Lizzo is set to perform in Baltimore tonight. She had to cancel some shows because of strep throat. Lizzo posted on Instagram, "Baltimore is looking good."
Well, that's what we like to hear. The Orioles are in town again tonight. This is a live look at Camden Yards, where the Birds will be taking on Tampa Bay tonight. Last night, despite their best efforts, the Birds were shut out by the Rays 3-0.
Lamar Jackson's ink pen used to sign that record-setting extension is for sale, and it's for good cause. It will benefit the Ravens Foundation. You can go to the Ravens website for auction information. Jackson's pen will be up for 2 more weeks. The bidding is just north of $2,000. Yeah.
I was just trying to look at it. Is it like a Mont Blanc?
It ain't a Mont Blanc. I have a Mont Blanc, and that ain't one. It doesn't look like one anyway to me.
It might just be one of the pens you can get at Staples, but
like a Bic?
Like
you pay $2 grand for a Bic?
But it's good luck. Right? It's good luck. It'll bring you lots of money. That's what you have to
Maybe
think.
we should start bidding. Next time we re-sign our contracts here with the station, we'll get like what, like $173 million or something? Anyway, just kidding.
Sure.
That would be nice.
We can hope.
All right, so let's look at the HD radar, and we've got some showers that are across Delaware as well as now exiting southern Maryland. So that's some good news for any folks that are making any travels around the area for the PM commute, or maybe getting the kids off to baseball or soccer, whatever it may be, this afternoon, this evening after school. Now down south, that's where we've got some severe weather out of this into North Carolina as well as southern portions of Virginia, and that will continue to move away. So for us, still some clouds, but I think the cooler weather and the warmer weather switch places as we head through the next couple of days, and the clouds and the sunshine do too. We're going to have a couple of really nice days that are coming our way. Right now it's 65. Even now it's okay. We had a little bit of light rain through the morning and the midday. It was barely even enough, I know, in my house to wet the road. 65 degrees. We've got winds out of the west-northwest at 3. Humidity, not bad, 47%, and dew points at 44 degrees. So that lower measure of moisture in there kind of took care of a lot of the rain as it came through. Temperatures low and mid-60s now, shrouded under the clouds. Our high temperatures were reached just after midnight last night. The highest I could find was about 66, and we're now at 65 here in Baltimore. We've been kind of tottering and teetering right around the mid-60s all day. And really statewide, everybody's in the 60s, even some 50s, where it's at least most lately rained right around California, Maryland. Temperatures running anywhere between about 10 to 15 degrees cooler than they were just 24 hours ago here in Baltimore, up to about Bel Air to Westminster. Look at this down south, up to about 20, 25 degrees colder. A big kind of pimple of cold air from Cumberland to here in Baltimore. Well, not cold, but cool. Temperatures in the mid-60s, 68 degrees down Salisbury Way, 68 at Philadelphia. There's the warmth Roanoke now at 83, and that will start to close back in on us as we head through the next few days. Now, temperatures overnight into early tomorrow morning. It's almost crisp as the skies clear out. Temperatures going to generally be in the 40s when you wake up. You'll need a jacket there. And look, in the afternoon tomorrow, well through the 60s into the low and mid 70s. So we continue back on that really nice trend of weather. A little bit cooler than what we saw yesterday, but still low to mid 70s. We'll take it. Temperature at 74 for tomorrow, 80 degrees on Thursday, 83 on Friday. We'll string together probably about, say, 2 or 3 80-plus days. Saturday could see a couple of scattered showers around, a high 82. Mother's Day still looks like some spot showers, touch and go there, but hopefully that's later in the day. Brunch, I think, should be okay. 72 scattered showers Monday, and it warms up again next Tuesday. Looks like that late spring pattern trying to take hold.
My wife and I have had numerous fights over this. We almost got a divorce over this because she couldn't understand why I was doing what I was doing.
A football coach who lost his job for praying on the field finally gets it back. The personal account you'll only see here this afternoon. And the race to fill Maryland Senator Ben Cardin's soon-to-be vacant seat is heating up. We're hearing the vision from the latest candidate to jump into the race. The governor signing over 100 bills into law yesterday in Annapolis. The policies tackle a wide range of issues, but not a single one is geared towards stopping the state's youth crime crisis. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has more on what the governor approved and what isn't being addressed.
In a city plagued with problems, one issue tends to top them all.
Crime rate.
Crime is beyond control. All the murder that is going on.
And recently, the city's ongoing crime crisis adding another layer of despair as violence tightens its grip on our young people. This year alone, at least 34 juveniles have been shot and 10 killed. And not only are they falling victim to crime, BPD also reporting a record-breaking number of juveniles committing crime. Just last week, an 18 and 14-year-old arrested in connection to the shooting death of a T-Mobile store employee during what police describe as a robbery gone wrong. But as for action being taken by lawmakers to address the problem, of the more than 800 bills passed in the 2023 session, covering everything from abortion, cannabis, and minimum wage, not one law took action against juvenile crime.
They missed the ball this year because you had a new governor and they were focusing on his legislative priorities.
Among the new laws put in place, requirements for state buildings to install bird-friendly windows. Another allows nonviolent offenders to get jobs at casinos, all while young lives continue to be lost at alarming rates.
I think a lot of the people have lost faith in where we're living.
According to political analyst John Dede, lawmakers' failure to address the problem could cost more lives, as well as their seats in Annapolis, come the next election cycle.
I think next year they're going to have to step up to the plate, start to use the next several months to build a program to deal with this problem, because it's not something that's going away and it will become a political issue.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
A potential warning sign for the economy coming from a new bank survey. I'm Atrell Nashar with what it could mean for your ability to take out a loan coming up.
Government agencies shouldn't be changing data to conform to whatever narrative is that they want to tell.
A Maryland lawmaker is looking for answers on why state test scores were taken down and information redacted from the public. Project Baltimore continues to push for transparency. And another candidate joins the race to fill the Senate seat soon to be vacated by Maryland lawmaker Ben Cardin. We take you beyond the podium next. Well, all eyes are on our nation's capital as we continue to near the first time our nation could default on its debt. The crucial date is June 1st. Right now, the White House and House Republicans are refusing to budge, even as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warns of crisis on the horizon.
We should not get to the point where we need to consider whether the president can go on issuing debt. This would be a constitutional crisis.
It was a bumpy day on Wall Street as investors and economists brace for two major developments this week: how Washington will address that debt ceiling and a key consumer inflation report.
National correspondent Dr. El Nashar reports on how Americans and banks are bracing for turbulent times.
The strain of a year's worth of interest rate hikes and 3 bank failures in 2 months showing up in the Federal Reserve's latest reading on the nation's lenders. The takeaway? Banks are tightening their standards for loans of all kinds, while demand for them is getting substantially weaker.
The Fed is aware that tightening of credit conditions is something that will tend to slow the economy somewhat.
A slowdown is the Fed's goal, necessary, they believe, to cool inflation, but not so much that it causes a recession. In the Fed survey, banks cited a less favorable or more uncertain economic outlook as a reason for tightening their standards, exacerbating what economists call a credit crunch. Economic uncertainty also coming from Capitol Hill as the deadline to raise the debt ceiling gets closer.
A failure to do that would be unprecedented. We'd be in uncharted territory, and the consequences to the U.S. economy would be highly uncertain and could be quite averse.
Americans are paying attention, and according to Gallup, losing faith in those calling the shots. 38% said they have a great deal or fair amount of confidence in House Republicans to do or recommend the right thing for the economy. 36% said that of Fed Chair Jerome Powell, 35% for President Biden, and 34% for congressional Democrats. Focus, too, on household finances. Wednesday's Consumer Price Index expected to show 12-month inflation in April slowed to 5%, in line with March's reading, but still well off the Fed's target of 2%. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
We'd like you to join the conversation. To vote, take out your phone, open the camera, and point it at the QR code on your screen. We want to know, are you worried about the economy if the U.S. defaults on its debt? Yes or no? Point your phone's camera at the QR code, and there you'll be able to weigh in.
Well, another candidate enters the race to replace retiring Maryland U.S. Senator Ben Cardin. Today, Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks officially announced her candidacy. She joins a growing list of candidates gearing up to battle it out next year for the Democratic nomination. Brad Bell with our Sinclair sister station in Washington, D.C., live right now following the race for us.
And Brad, candidates aren't wasting any time getting into this race we see.
Yeah, no, look, they want to get in quickly. Political scientists say there's a couple of reasons for that. One, they want to get their names out there. They maybe want to discourage others, and they got to get fundraising going. So look, Senator Cardin didn't make it a huge secret that he wasn't going to run. In fact, he spent some time talking to each of those who many figured were going to be trying to succeed him to give them a head start. We know they were out filming their commercials, their videos ahead of time. So on the very day that the senator said he was stepping down, Will Jawando, is a member of the Montgomery County Council, announced, and then it was Representative David Trone from Maryland's 6th District, and then today, County Executive Angela Alsobrooks. Each of them, as we say, really trying to get a head start, really get their names out there.
All right, Brad, thank you for the update. We appreciate it. Well, tonight, calls are growing for the Maryland State Department of Education to reverse course and restore test results to its website so the public can see them.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, pressure is mounting on MSDE.
The Maryland State Department of Education says it cares about student privacy. It's mentioned right here in a recent statement on its website. Quote, MSDE takes student data privacy seriously, and data suppression plays an essential role in that effort. The statement was released in response to this letter signed by 8 Maryland delegates. They asked State Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry to explain why his department removed, redacted, and then reposted state test results to its website.
Government agencies shouldn't be changing data to conform to whatever narrative is that they want to tell.
Delegate Ryan Naraki signed the letter.
It was your story, frankly, and stories, I should say, that allowed many of us to know in the legislature here kind of what's going on, because it is very difficult to get that information.
For more than a decade, MSDE's guidelines for redacting test scores have remained the same. But in March, without telling the public, the state changed how it reports the data, hiding many of the results. The change came weeks after Project Baltimore reported that 23 Baltimore City schools and 7 Baltimore County schools had 0 students who took the test score proficient in math. MSDE says it further redacted test results to protect student privacy due to disruptions from the pandemic to ensure a reasonable person in the school community could not identify individual students.
But take a look at this spreadsheet, also from MSDE's website. It lists all the Title I schools that receive additional funding for having high concentrations of poverty. What this means is MSDE will tell the public if 100% of students in a school live in poverty, but it will not tell the public if 100% of students in a school fail to score proficient in English or math.
According to the state's website, Baltimore County has 3 schools with 100% poverty. If that's true, hasn't MSDE by default identified every student in that school as living in poverty? Suspension data is also posted on MSDE's website. This spreadsheet lists the number of suspensions at every school in Maryland. At Wa Chapel Elementary in Anne Arundel County, 1 student was suspended last year. We can also see that students' gender, race, and reason for suspension, all identifying factors. When reporting state test scores, if only 1 student takes the test, MSDE redacts the results, they say, to protect student privacy. So why doesn't that same standard apply to suspensions?
Well, I think you raised a great question.
State Senator Justin Reedy represents Carroll and Frederick counties.
But it's awfully convenient, and an entity, an organization, a taxpayer-funded government organization like MSDE has to be mindful also of how things appear.
MSDE declined our request for an interview on this matter, so we sent an email asking why some data that identifies students is redacted and some is not. We sent this email last Thursday. We sent a follow-up email Monday. We never heard back.
It looks to me like a government agency that found some reasons why they could excuse why they want to take data down that's embarrassing.
Senator Reedy last week added his name to this public statement issued by the Maryland Alliance of Parents and Students, which along with other groups is publicly demanding accountability.
The taxpayers are footing a huge bill, and taxpayers should be able to know what they're getting for the money they're investing. But to just do it and not tell anybody and then act like you and the media are the crazy ones for asking the questions is really disingenuous.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Well, meanwhile, the Maryland Inspector General for Education has released the results of his investigation into state test scores that were taken offline. This is what the IG found. That report follows a Project Baltimore investigation. MSDE said the data was mistakenly posted online before it could be fully redacted to protect student privacy. And because of learning challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic, the state further redacted results.
Well, the IG's findings reiterate what Project Baltimore has reported, but it says the final decision on how to redact results is left up to individual states. Therefore, the state superintendent of schools was within the scope of his authority to redact test scores. All 4 states surrounding Maryland, though, do provide the public with more information about how schools are performing.
In Anne Arundel County, raises are on the way for bus drivers, police, firefighters, and others. County Executive Stuart Pittman says $2.14 billion proposal comes with fees for the wealthiest and also a 1% raise in the hotel tax and a 25-cent fee for ride sharing.
All of our neighbors in Central Maryland, those counties are at 3.2, which is the state max. So we thought, well, let's let the top earners go to that 3.2. It's still only the income above those levels, so they're really paying about 3. So it's still the best deal in the region.
Well, there's a public comment period before the county board votes, which is required by June 15th.
I wish none of this ever happened. I wouldn't wish this upon anybody to ever go through this.
A high school football coach takes his fight to the Supreme Court after he was fired for praying on the field after games. He recounts how events have turned around.
With emergency migrant shelters at capacity before Title 42 expires, concerns are mounting about what happens next. I'm Christine Frizzau in Washington with the fallout.
And clouds and a bit cooler. Maybe going to use some long sleeves this afternoon as you're doing some out and about, as you may be taking the kids to the ball fields. Temperatures in low to mid 60s, mostly cloudy skies. Rain's out of here. I'll let you know when it comes back. And also temperatures in the 80s are back in my Weather Authority forecast.
Right now, FDA advisors are meeting to discuss whether to make daily birth control pills available over the counter for the first time. This would put the responsibility on patients to follow instructions on the drug label. Some FDA staffers say this could lead to inconsistent drug use, but proponents say over-the-counter birth control will reduce barriers to contraceptive access, especially in a post-Roe environment. More than 100 countries have over-the-counter birth control pills, according to the American Academy of Family Physicians. The deadline has been marked right now for months, but despite knowing the pandemic-era restrictions known as Title 42 will expire later this week, there are growing concerns this country isn't prepared. National correspondent Christine Frizzau brings us up to speed.
An immigration system on the brink of collapse, with many migrant shelters already at capacity before Title 42 ends. About 1,800 migrants estimated to be sleeping outside Sacred Heart Church in El Paso, where U.S. Customs and Border Protection announced a, quote, targeted enforcement operation, including the arrest and deportation of many migrants, a move met with criticism.
For any law enforcement agency to give the criminals that they're going after a heads up of when and where they're going to go after them is absurd. It's nonsensical.
The Border Patrol Union responding, nothing like publicly announcing that dangerous people will be arrested while warning them ahead of time exactly where to run and hide to avoid arrest.
The state of Texas has already sent in a tactical border force to assist with the large numbers.
In this situation, our soldiers are going to be expected to prevent, deter, and interdict illegal immigration into the state of Texas.
As these pictures flood onto people's TV screens and social media feeds, House Republicans say they plan to vote this Thursday on a bill they call the Secure the Border Act. It would reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy, restart construction on the border wall, and further restrict pathways to citizenship. President Biden has promised to veto the bill he says would make things worse, not better.
The president would like to do more. He's using the tools in front of him, but Congress refuses to act. Instead, many Republican officials want to make a political case out of this.
Despite actions by the White House designed to slow the numbers, more than 150,000 are now estimated to be waiting just across the border for what they see as an opportunity for a better life. I'm Christine Frizzau reporting.
Well, after some rain earlier, now just hanging out with clouds. The showers have descended down toward Lexington Park, Princess Anne, so really kind of out of the area at this point. We do again have some clouds mixed in with a little bit of sunshine. Take a look way south. Could have been a lot worse. Some severe thunderstorm watches where the air is a lot more unstable in portions of Virginia as well as down into the Carolinas. That's also close to a cold front. That's what actually has brought in some of the cooler air for us and some of those light showers on and off today. Those, again, are moving south. You see some of the clouds moving away as well. And warmer air is hot on the heels. So we are back into the 70s tomorrow and likely the 80s by the end of the week once again. 65 right now in the Mile 1 Towson Cam. Winds out of the west-northwest at 3. Humidity 47%. Dew points in the 40s. So that's fairly dry. That's really kept our bigger rains at bay today. So really any rain, any showers that has really come through, it's been very brief, and really any rain that's been down on the ground is kind of evaporated pretty quick. We're at 65 with dry skies now here in Baltimore. 56, it's cooler at Cockeysville. 68 at Westminster, 64 at Frederick. Temperatures in the low to mid 60s on the eastern shore, so it's not as warm as 83 that we had yesterday. Temperatures all across the board generally are in the 60s. A lot more clouds today, even some 50s down toward California, Maryland. The sunshine breaking out once again out toward Cumberland as well as Oakland. Temperatures running pretty much statewide in a deficit, anywhere between about 5 to 10 degrees cooler than we were just 24 hours ago up near the state line. And then here in Baltimore, we're about 15 degrees colder, and even cooler than that down to our south. Temperatures running about 20 degrees colder than 24 hours ago in places like Laurel. This dimple of colder air from some of that rain today, that continues to hang out along with the clouds. That will fill back in with this warmth from the north and the south on into tomorrow. Taking a look at the future scan overnight into tomorrow morning. By about 6 a.m., skies clear out, so it's going to chill down as well. Temperatures in the 40s to near 50. You'll need some jackets here, sunglasses as well, and pretty much wall-to-wall sun for tomorrow. Gorgeous day, low to mid 70s. Get outside, enjoy it. Maybe a little outdoor lunch for you. Working to 80 on Thursday, Friday, 83. Saturday, could see some scattered showers, 82. And maybe a shower or two, but especially that's later on Sunday. I think brunches for mom hopefully should be okay. There was 75. Scattered showers a little more numerous on Monday of next week. And then we drop you down into the low to mid 70s as we head towards the middle and beginning portions of next week. But still, that's right around where we should be for this time of year.
Jonathan, thank you. Coming up at 5 o'clock on Fox 45, was the mayor's office hiding spending details from City Hall? Fox 45 News investigates the controversy surrounding ARPA funds. In a story you'll only see here tonight, we hear from a football coach who successfully fought his school after he was fired for praying on the field. We have a story you'll only see here tonight. It's about Joe Kennedy, a high school football coach in Washington State who you may know as the praying coach. In 2015, he was fired by his school for leading prayers on the field among his players. He took his fight to the Supreme Court, where he won his job back. Mary Nam, with our Sinclair sister station in Seattle, spoke exclusively with Kennedy about what happened.
I wish none of this ever happened. I wouldn't wish this upon anybody to ever go through this.
From his home in Pensacola, Florida, Joe Kennedy spoke frankly. Unlike previous network interviews, there was no lawyer by his side now that his legal battle is over. In June 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled Kennedy's post-game prayers on the field were protected under the Constitution's First Amendment. The ruling came 7 years after Kennedy was first put on leave and his contract with the district wasn't renewed.
What surprised you the most about this journey for you?
The legal system, hands down. I thought it was going to be like Law and Order. One day you're going to, the thing happens, the next day you're in the courtroom, and the next day I'm stepping back on the football field.
Kennedy will be reinstated as ordered by the court. He says going back won't be easy.
Did you lose friends over this?
Oh, yeah, a whole lot of them. And it was really weird how some people they take it so personal. It's just like in politics today. Oh, you like that candidate? I can't like you anymore. Really? Are we in third grade just because I'm fighting for something means that we can't be friends? I'm fighting for you to be able to tell me I'm wrong. It's the freedom is for everybody. I don't know why the personal attacks came about. My wife and I have had numerous fights over this. We almost got a divorce over this because she couldn't understand why I was doing what I was doing.
Kennedy says for him, the answer was simple.
I said from the very beginning, this wasn't about me. This was about the Constitution. This was about doing what was right. And the only thing I wanted to do was coach football and to be able to thank God afterwards. And that's it.
Critics accuse Kennedy of blurring the lines between his personal faith and his role as a coach and say his private prayer was anything but beneath the lights at the 50-yard line. Kennedy says he wants to show the fight was about individual freedom.
I don't care what you are or you don't even have any faith. That's the greatest thing about America is everybody has the exact same freedoms. Nobody's more special than the other. Christians aren't special. Jewish people aren't special. Muslims, none of us. We are all identically the same with the exact same rights.
Since the ruling, Kennedy's spotlight has grown brighter. He has a website, a publicist, an agency that handles speaking engagements. There's even talk of a movie. Kennedy admits he doesn't know if he'll move back to Bremerton for his $5,300 stipend position. The school district confirms Kennedy completed his paperwork, but the district says he hasn't participated in any monthly coaches meetings he's been invited to or responded to the team's questions about spring ball. Joe Kennedy tells me he will show up.
I'm going to do what's absolutely best for the school district and for the Bremerton Knights.
But the court didn't say he has to stay.
If I get in the way of what's going on, then I'll definitely step back and out of the way.
That was Mary Nam reporting. As for the $1.7 million settlement, Kennedy says all of that money went toward his legal fees. He says he wants to focus on the student athletes, which is also what the school system wants to focus on as well.
Let's go ahead and take a look at our Mother's Day weekend. A quick look here as we take a look at the GFS Future Scan. That's our American computer model. We use it for the 7-day forecast. Friday's a dry day. It is going to be warm, low to mid 80s. I think Saturday, too, about 80 to 85. Could see some showers. So if you're going to be doing an early Mother's Day celebration, you may have to have umbrellas out there. And then Sunday for brunch time starts dry, but during the afternoon and evening, that's when some showers could roll in once again. Highs at 82 on Saturday. Mom's Day, not bad, 75.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, a nationally known civil rights lawyer is fighting for Archdiocese abuse survivors, the impact Ben Crump could have. Also coming up at 5 o'clock, a man is arrested accused of committing violent crimes while a warrant was already out for his arrest. We look into why that warrant wasn't served. The mayor's office apparently keeps quiet in key information from the city council. Details on a controversy in City Hall surrounding how the city is spending millions of dollars.
A man with a long rap sheet is arrested on attempted murder charges, looking into what our investigation is revealing about a breakdown in the criminal justice system.
Ben Crump steps in to support victims of the Baltimore Archdiocese abuse scandal, the impact he could have.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
Breaking tonight, there's a verdict in the civil rape trial against former President Donald Trump. A New York City federal jury finds former President Trump liable for sexually abusing and defaming columnist E. Jean Carroll. The former president must pay Carroll $5 million in damages, $3 million for defamation, and $2 million for her civil battery claim. Carroll did not speak to the press leaving court today. Well, Trump reacted to that verdict on his Truth social media account, saying he has no idea who Carroll is and that the verdict is a disgrace. He did not appear at the trial, and on Sunday, he rejected his last opportunity to testify. Good evening. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Well, first on Fox tonight, some new insight into how little the mayor's office was willing to share about how it's been handing out the $641 million from the American Rescue Plan.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost obtained emails showing the mayor's office was keeping some information from city council and the public as leaders picked which groups got money.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Mayor Brandon Scott has been allocating millions of dollars.
We are allocating approximately $4 million from the American Rescue Plan funds
to city agencies and nonprofits across Baltimore for more than a year.
We are announcing a combined $90.4 million.
All from the $641 million the city got from the federal American Rescue Plan Act. Mayor Scott creating the Office of Recovery in July 2021, led by Shemaiah Kearney to oversee funding distribution. The mayor committing to a transparent process.
This is a way where the administration, in coordination with the council, will be able to come in.
City Council President Nick Mosby sponsoring a bill in September 2021 to give the council a bigger role in how that money is spent.
So more importantly, ensure that we are investing this money and not spending this money.
The plan passing and oversight hearings were held. Council members endorsing certain projects in their district they wanted to see funded, but those endorsements not always resulting in a group getting money. Fox 45 News obtaining emails between city council members and Director Kearney and her team showing how little influence the council's endorsements really had. From late April 2022 through mid-May, Councilman Ryan Dorsey demanding to know how those council endorsements factored into picking nonprofits for funding after none of the groups he backed got any money. Director Kearney writing, council endorsements were not a part of the review team criteria, rather one of many factors in the deliberations. The emails show Councilman Dorsey wasn't alone in asking why some groups got funding and not others. Mayor Scott announcing nearly $3.5 million in July of 2022 going to different nonprofit groups. Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer asking specifically how much each nonprofit was awarded. Director Kearney asks a colleague if the city has to provide exact dollar amounts and then says hopefully he gets it. But I'm sure the questions and misinterpretation will occur anyway.
The city council deserves to have this information.
Taxpayer watchdog David Williams says the elected city council has the right to serve as a check and balance to the mayor.
This is in direct circumvention of what the city council was asking for.
More emails obtained by Fox 45 News show Director Kearney goes a step further in shielding transparency. The Baltimore Civic Fund, which calls itself the financial backbone for public-private partnerships in the city, tells Director Kearney sharing with the public how much money a nonprofit asked for and received was an option. Director Kearney asks why that information is needed, adding dollar amounts can be shared with an organization, but definitely not needed for the public. Telling everyone on that email chain to mark the document as confidential and not to be distributed. The secrecy surrounding hundreds of millions of dollars comes from an administration priding itself on transparency and building trust within the city.
There are a lot more questions than answers when it comes to the way this mayor is spending money and the way he's approving contracts in the city. And it's time for the mayor to have less power in the city, not more power.
The mayor writing in a 2021 op-ed in the Baltimore Sun that transparency, accountability, and integrity are essential for building trust. Or in his address marking his first year in office.
And hold my administration accountable.
In response to our questions about these emails, the mayor's office telling Fox 45 News details about deliberations were not shared publicly to prevent undue influence. The statement says, in part, the city council received copies of all 322 eligible proposals submitted by nonprofits, adding the city is stronger when it works with nonprofits across the community.
Now, there's still more money to be allocated, and by law, all of this federal funding has to be committed by the end of next year. Whether the city council plays a larger role in that conversation about how that money is allocated remains to be seen. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Mackenzie. That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the city is transparent in how it's spending federal relief funds? So far, 88% of you who voted say no. Make your voice heard by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Well, Councilman Yitzi Schleifer is introducing a bill aimed at improving transparency in city spending. The bill would require grant recipients to submit documentation on how city money is being used to the Board of Estimates. That information would then be posted publicly online. The bill calls for certain employees and board members of various organizations to be required to file financial disclosure information. Councilman Schleifer says that even as a member of the City Council, he's had difficulty tracking how city money is being used. And also, first on Fox tonight, an investigation by Fox 45 News reveals another breakdown in the criminal justice system. Just days ago, a 26-year-old repeat violent offender was arrested on drug charges. Fox 45 News finding he had multiple open warrants for other crimes. Alexa Ashwell live downtown with another case of a wanted suspect seemingly slipping through the cracks. Alexa?
Yes, Mary, when Baltimore police arrested Terrell Parker on drug distribution and possession charges May 6, he already had 3 open warrants for his arrest, including for attempted murder. One warrant was nearly 6 months old. Fox 45 News obtaining charging documents of those warrants and found in November 2022 a warrant was issued for Parker's arrest for an alleged assault and burglary involving his girlfriend. 3 months later, Parker was accused of assaulting another girlfriend and stealing her car. Then in April, Parker was identified by 2 witnesses as the suspect who shot a man in the face. Another warrant was issued for his arrest for attempted murder. Parker finally arrested in May 6, on drug distribution and possession charges. Court records show he was caught with suspected cocaine and heroin after an officer surveilling City Watch cameras recognized him and knew he was wanted for attempted murder. Fox 45 News questioning BPD, asking why did it take so long to track down Parker? Former BPD Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson says it all comes down to staffing.
The Warrant Apprehension Task Force, which is the component of the police department, they don't have the resources or the manpower to go track down every single person with an open warrant. So therefore, you're going to have a lot of people with open warrants that are just going about their business, probably committing other crimes.
Now, in the past, Commissioner Harrison has said the department prioritizes warrants based on the severity of the crime. But Parker, well known to BPD, a violent criminal history that dates back into his juvenile years, including an arrest for murder back in 2019. Just in the past hour, we did receive a response from BPD, a spokesperson saying they are working on obtaining copies of Parker's past warrants in order to ascertain which city agency issued them, but confirming Parker was arrested by the department's Warrant Apprehension Task Force. So we're still waiting for more details to our inquiry. As for Parker, he is being held now without bond. Reporting live outside police headquarters, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
A big name joins the fight against sex abuse victims within the Baltimore Archdiocese. Nationally renowned civil rights attorney Ben Crump is advocating for survivors and pushing for other states to follow Maryland's lead in lifting the statute of limitations on childhood sexual abuse. This comes after a shocking report released by the Attorney General of Maryland last month detailing horrific, decades-long abuse covered up by the Baltimore Archdiocese. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker joins us live right now with new details. Maxine?
Kai Crump, along with another prominent attorney here in Baltimore, they plan to file hundreds of lawsuits on behalf of the survivors come October, when Maryland's new Child Victims Act takes effect.
Most people still don't want to believe it.
In front of the Baltimore Basilica Tuesday, attorneys Ben Crump and Adam Slater stood along survivors of childhood sex abuse within the Baltimore Archdiocese.
We stand honored to represent victims who have been sexually abused as children and who have had to suffer in silence for decades until we had great leaders in the Maryland legislature pass a law that told them finally they could get some measure of justice.
The Maryland Child Victims Act was signed into law last month. It allows survivors to file retroactive lawsuits, even if their claims have already expired under an existing statute of limitations, and eliminates the statute of limitations for all future lawsuits based on childhood sexual abuse claims.
We believe that the Maryland state constitution allows for a look back of the statute of limitations.
The attorneys plan to file hundreds of lawsuits in Baltimore court against the Catholic Archdiocese of Baltimore, beginning October 1st of this year, when a look back window under Maryland's Child Victims Act begins.
This case is about holding the institution that enabled the abusers accountable. In this case, of course, it's the Catholic Church. So even though they're long deceased, first of all, many of them were known abusers, meaning that they abused many, many victims. The institution must be held accountable.
Crump says hundreds of survivors have come forward to them, some named in the Attorney General's report, others telling their story for the first time.
My name's Mark Floto.
Mark Floto was just a young boy when he says he was abused.
It caused so many problems in my life, and so much anger and hate and angst and anguish against my family, that I actually hated them for them having a good life.
The Attorney General report released last month detailed decades of horrific abuse, saying the Archdiocese of Baltimore was not only aware of it, but failed to take action to prevent the abuse.
I can't even fathom. I mean, it is beyond imagination what Tanya and others went through when they were betrayed by the very people their mothers and fathers turned to for guidance.
The hope now is others will come forward and tell their stories and finally have a chance at justice.
I just hope I can help somebody else understand, and they can come forward and talk.
They're also launching a petition calling for the passage of legislation across the country to remove the statute of limitations for child sex abuse cases. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Well, right now, Ben Crump has also joined a lawsuit against Baltimore City Schools. It accuses the school system of wasting tax dollars and failing to provide an adequate education to generations of students. And we also should disclose Ben Crump is an advertiser on this TV station.
After being told hazardous waste would not be coming here, things have changed. How local leaders are bracing for a shipment of toxic water headed to Baltimore.
Is there an advantage to announcing early the latest developments in the Maryland Senate race as a new candidate launches her campaign?
What happens when the White House and the press are at odds? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a look at the tricky balance in covering politics these days.
And clouds giving way to clearing skies this evening after, well, at least the threat of some rain today that really did not help out much with the pollen. Take a look. Grass is now even worse. Very high. Trees, high pollen there. Oak and Beach. No weed pollen, but the molds, those are low to medium levels. Man, mess there. But the weather, it's getting better. I'll let you know when sun comes back in my Weather Authority forecast.
Making headlines now, President Joe Biden is meeting with all 4 congressional leaders today to talk about the looming debt ceiling crisis. The deadline less than a month away, and while both sides remain split about how to move forward, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and most Republicans say they will boost the ceiling with some purse tightening. White House economists and independent analysts have warned a default could result in major economic woes, including the plunging of the stock market and the loss of millions of jobs.
Now to Washington, D.C., where the daily back and forth between politicians and the press has been getting added attention. As it also happens, it's coming at a time when there's confrontation in Washington. Sinclair's chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman, shows us why the power struggle is back in the spotlight.
It's often been a prickly relationship between the media and the White House, the two traditionally butting heads over what's fair reporting and what's fair game, usually accompanied by a chorus of shouts.
Thank you very much.
But now new clashes. The New York Post claiming it was barred from attending Biden's event Monday due to space limitations, then publishing a photo of empty seats. The Post alleging it could be retaliation for its critical reporting on Hunter Biden, or reporters fighting just to get called on, then being rebuked for it.
I hear your question, but we're not doing this the way you want it. This is the disrespectful. I'm done. Simon, I'm done.
Now some media pointing out requirements to keep full access to the White House grounds comes with a caveat. The White House expects all hard pass holders, it reads, to act in a professional manner while on White House grounds by respecting their colleagues, White House employees, and guests.
Obviously, the people in the White House want every member of the media to make the president look wonderful and his priorities, exactly what this country needs. Whereas the media is after the truth and news and a good story. So there's this natural born conflict there.
The confrontation's nothing new, whether it be under LBJ in the 1960s, Richard Nixon's infamous feuds with the press, or Trump's retaliation against those who challenged him most. Like when White House staff revoked reporter Brian Karem's press pass after he and a former White House aide got into this heated exchange. A judge intervened, saying the White House was wrong.
That's enough. Put down the mic.
And the Trump administration pulled CNN reporter Jim Acosta's badge after numerous confrontations, prompting CNN to sue, and the White House eventually returning his pass. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
There we are. Let's go into the weather wall.
Sorry, none of us were really paying attention. Okay, here we are talking about weather.
We are.
And the weather is actually getting a lot better around here. Had some clouds. Now the clearing moving in, and this means for us warmer temperatures once again. So if you don't like the 60s and the rain that we saw today.
Yes, we'd like something different.
Yeah, things are going to be different and in a warmer and sunnier way. So let's go right into things. Good. And we're going to break everything down for you. Showers, those were here earlier on this morning. Now we're on the weather wall. You can see those now moving south and southeast, and our latest weather maker beginning to push away. Cool temperatures only in the 60s this afternoon, in the mid-60s. Well, that's cooler by about 20 degrees than the 83 that we had yesterday, but this is only a very short change to that cooler weather. By tomorrow, we're back well into the 70s again, and I think we're going to have some temperatures getting into the 80s thereafter. 66 right now here in Baltimore, mostly cloudy skies in the background. We've got one of our new traffic cameras we got some access to on 695. Looks like some pretty heavy traffic. Winds out of the north-northwest at 3 miles an hour. At least there's some sunshine trying to break out from between the clouds. Temperatures at 56 at Cockeysville. That's an anomaly, though. Most folks are in the 60s to near 70. And really, actually, across the state, lots of 60s and low 70s. 59, though, at California, Maryland, where you're still dealing with some of the leftover drizzly, kind of patchy, sprinkly weather. And sunshine back with low to mid 60s, even some upper 60s, actually, around Cumberland this afternoon in far western Maryland. Temperatures still, though, are running about 5 to 15 degrees cooler than they were just 24 hours ago, almost statewide. You can see this dimple of chilly air. That's with our latest weather maker giving the clouds and giving some of the showers. South of this, temperatures in the 80s. North of it, temperatures in the 70s. And that will all close back in for us over the next several days. So overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, tracking the temperatures on the future scan by about 6 a.m. Jackets needed. Lots of 40s to around 50 degrees. By about 8 a.m., we're into the 50s. And then by about noontime tomorrow, about 65 to 70. So that's a really nice time to head on out and maybe have a lunch at the Inner Harbor outside. And temperatures as we work into the afternoon, even warmer yet, back into the low to mid 70s. So the nice pattern, it continues not only Wednesday, but if you like warmer weather, Thursday. On Friday, 83, 82 Saturday. Yes, we could see some scattered showers. I think during the afternoon, evening more so. That's our risk of showers on Mother's Day. So most of the day should be dry with 75. A better chance of some showers Monday of next week, and then 77 for Tuesday.
Toxic water headed for Baltimore after local leaders previously said no. The latest in the saga over wastewater from the Ohio train derailment. Higher pay for Anne Arundel County teachers, police officers, and firefighters, but it does come at a cost. A closer look at the increased taxes some members of the community could have to foot. Raises across the board for a number of key government jobs in Anne Arundel County. The hope is the better pay will help with filling shortages and worker retention. Fox 45's Tom Rogers spoke with the county executive about how those raises are being paid for.
Anne Arundel County employees, school employees, bus drivers, police and fire, they are all getting raises next year in Anne Arundel with a 5% cost of living bump plus 3% raises for some and additional positions to help relieve their workload. Now, if the county council approves the proposed budget, County Executive Stuart Pittman's $2.14 billion proposal comes with fees for the wealthiest and also a 1% rise in hotel tax and a 25-cent fee for each ride share.
we're like a business. You have to have the revenue side to be able to do the expenses. And unfortunately, with government, the revenue comes out of the pockets of us. It's our government. So we have to be honest about that. We have to be straight about that. And yeah, we're having to do a little bit of a bump on the property tax, and then a little bit of a bump on the income tax for the highest 2% of earners.
Yeah, and you say a little bit of a bump. We are talking about, though, these are top earners, and I think the threshold, which is what you have listed out, is $480,000 for joint incomes, and then single people incomes making anywhere above $400,000. So they're going to go to a 3.2 property tax. Why those numbers? Why $480,000 and $400,000?
Well, we looked at what we needed, really, and we thought it made sense to go. So we're at 2.8% for most of our income, and 2.7 for the first 50,000 in Anne Arundel. All of our neighbors in Central Maryland, those counties, are at 3.2, which is the state max. And so we thought, well, let's let the top earners go to that 3.2. It's still only the income above those levels, so they're really paying about 3. So it's still the best deal in the region.
Now, Anne Arundel County lists multiple opportunities day and night over the next few weeks for the public to voice their concerns and praises, but a sign-up is required to address the county council. The budget is required to be voted on by June 15th. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
Is the historic Hendler building on its final days? I'm Rebecca Pryor, and coming up, I'll tell you about the city's plans to demolish the once thriving ice cream factory and the community's pushback against those plans.
Well, she is terrified just coming into work, hearing from another employee in the same shopping center as the deadly T-Mobile robbery, who believes the tragedy could have been prevented. And another candidate throwing her hat into the ring, why experts say Angela Alsobrooks could be a strong candidate in the race for Maryland's open Senate seat.
The battle over wastewater from Ohio being shipped to this area continues tonight. The water was contaminated months ago when a train derailed in Ohio, catching fire and spilling chemicals from its cargo. Now the federal government is leaning on wastewater treatment plants across the country, including some in this area. Well, despite pushback from local and state leaders, it seems that toxic water is coming to this area. Amy Simpson joins us live right now with the new developments. Amy.
So, Kai, I want you to take a look behind me. You can see here off of Russell Street, the Horseshoe Casino, behind that, M&T Bank Stadium, and of course on the other side of that is Camden Yards. But if you take a look over here, this is Clean Harbors of Baltimore, and this is where that toxic wastewater will be treated here in Baltimore before being sent back to Ohio to be disposed of. Now, today, Clean Harbors said that its Baltimore plant is equipped to safely process the Ohio wastewater, and out of respect for Mayor Scott and Baltimore City DPW, the company will not discharge any of that treated water here. The Maryland Department of the Environment tells me Norfolk Southern notified the agency it intends to ship roughly 75,000 gallons of hazardous wastewater to Baltimore each day. But because Clean Harbors is a private company, it does not have regulatory authority over this decision.
And so, Amy, we understand you've also learned this toxic wastewater will be brought to Baltimore by either truck or train. What concerns does this raise for surrounding jurisdictions?
Yeah, so Kai, it makes sense. To get here to Baltimore City, that toxic waste must travel through multiple Maryland jurisdictions, including a neighboring Baltimore County. Today, I spoke to two of those local lawmakers about their concerns for that waste to travel through their jurisdiction. Take a listen.
We have to be very careful and make sure that it is a slow, safe route of transport, that we don't have any derailment issues, and that also that we're tracking and monitoring to ensure that nothing does go into our wastewater system.
We want to make sure promises were given, that promises are kept. And right now, it doesn't seem that's what's going on right now.
Now, I'm told that toxic waste has not yet arrived here in Baltimore, but the Maryland Department of the Environment said those shipments could begin anytime on or after April 29th, which means they could start arriving any day now. We're live in Baltimore. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
There's new information on the deadly T-Mobile shooting at a Canton shopping center. 18-year-old Arthur McCaden has been denied bail. He's accused of shooting and killing 23-year-old Fabian Sanchez Gonzalez, an employee working at that store. McCaden's brother, who's 14 and unidentified because of his age, is also facing murder charges. The two are also accused of robbing a Best Buy in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, hours before the deadly events in Baltimore.
And as Fox 45's Olivia Dance reports, now some who work and live in Canton are uneasy.
The shooting that happened inside this T-Mobile happened in the middle of the afternoon. So I spoke with an employee who works at another store in this shopping center. She tells me she is now scared for her safety.
The community is mourning after 23-year-old Fabian Sanchez Gonzalez was shot and killed during a robbery at the T-Mobile in Canton. He was just trying to do his job.
I just never thought that that would be like the last day that I would get to see him alive.
I spoke with an employee at another store in the same shopping center as the T-Mobile who asked to remain anonymous out of fear for her safety. She would often see Fabian in passing.
It breaks my heart to know that he's not with us anymore and that it could have been so avoided.
How do you think it could have been avoided?
More protection and security, because why does it take somebody dying for people to start enforcing safety? Or why is it like when robberies happen before in other places that we don't get coverage?
Weeks before Fabian's murder, the store she works at was also robbed. She wasn't working at the time.
The store got robbed like in March. The person was held at gunpoint, and she was very, very traumatized, so much so that she had to leave the job, which I don't blame her for. But no one talked about it, no one seemed to care.
Frustrated over the lack of response from the shopping center's property owner and Baltimore city leaders.
I guess it's they just don't want to have negative reputation within the area. But I mean, what good does that do if people are dying and getting hurt, injured, or getting traumatized when they're coming to work?
She says after that, her store now closes early before it gets dark, but she's still scared for her safety when going to work.
Definitely lights would help, like these lights right over here. I don't know why they don't turn on. There could be more security, especially if there's a lot of stores, so close to each other. I guess it's just negligence.
She says she is tired of all the talk and wants to actually see action from city leaders when it comes to keeping employees safe. Now, this shopping center is in Councilman Zeke Cohen's district. I reached out to him asking what is being done to improve safety and security in this area. So far, though, I haven't heard back yet. For now, reporting in Canton, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Preserving a piece of Baltimore's precious history. That's what some city residents say is at stake if plans to demolish the centuries-old Hendler Creamery building move forward. Today, the building's fate was at the center of a heated debate at a meeting before the Commission for Historic and Architectural Preservation, also known as CHAP. Take a listen.
And he concurs with the findings.
Objection, that's hearsay.
That's not hearsay.
Well, that is unfair. Answer the question.
I would answer the question is that this is not a hearing about demolition by neglect.
Wow. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor attended that hearing. She joins us live with details. Rebecca, you don't normally see architectural preservation meetings getting heated like that, do you?
No, but it was very heated today, Kai, as you just saw. And it just wrapped up about an hour or so ago. It was 3 hours long of that back and forth. Take a look. This is the building that's at the center of the controversy. It's home to the former Hendler Creamery, the country's first fully automated ice cream factory. Some consider its century-old architecture a historic landmark, but the city's engineers have determined the building is structurally unsalvageable. At a hearing held last month, CHAP decided the deteriorating building no longer holds any historical significance. With that in mind, they approved its demolition to make way for a community green space. However, some have since challenged if proper protocols were followed for that vote. When the city was asked to provide proof, video of that meeting mysteriously went missing. So today, another hearing was held to rediscuss the building's historic significance, some arguing both a beloved building and CHAP's integrity are in jeopardy.
It is the credibility of CHAP which is at stake. If there's enough evidence that was presented here today that causes serious question as to what the process has been on this property.
Now, ultimately, CHAP did end up wavering from their previous decision, voting 6-5 that the building is historically significant and in turn should not be torn down. However, that doesn't mean that the building is safe just yet. CHAP is also scheduling a second hearing to determine if it makes financial sense for the city to preserve the former creamery, during which they could still vote to demolish it. That hearing will be held sometime next month. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Making headlines, Mayor Brandon Scott lifts the mask mandate in City Hall. Well over a year after the mandate was lifted for the rest of the city, Johns Hopkins Hospital did it last month. The building closed completely in March of 2020. Masks have been required since it reopened in April of 2022 for all public meetings.
Over the next couple of days, you may run into some traffic problems on the Baltimore Beltway near I-70. The State Highway Administration is continuing its recreation of the deadly Beltway crash that killed 6 construction workers earlier this year. Now, that recreation is meant to help officials better understand what led to the accident and improve safety in the future. Sources tell Fox 45 some of the victims had repeatedly complained about safety issues, asking that the lane of traffic closures closest to the work zone be shut down.
Multiple apartments destroyed in a fire overnight in Ellicott City. Crews responded to a 2-alarm fire just after 10:30. When they arrived, the flames were burning through the roof of the building. 14 apartments were impacted, leaving multiple families homeless. Luckily, no injuries. The cause of the fire still under investigation.